everyone, I'm Caro, the Mental Traveler, and welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about Camelot, my third favorite movie ever, and it's actually a musical based on a stage play that was inspired by the novel The Once and Future King by T.H. White. And I have already reviewed that book in another video, but I actually prefer the film to the novel, and I'll be telling you why later on. Camelot is about the legend of King Arthur, and it deals a lot with the love triangle between Arthur, his wife Guinevere, and the finest knight in the Round Table, Sir Lancelot du Lac. This movie came out in 1967, and it was directed by Joshua Logan. It stars the amazingly talented Richard Harris, who plays King Arthur, the handsomest man I've ever seen in my life, Nero, and he is Lancelot, and Guinevere is played by my favorite actress in the world, Vanessa Redgrave. This is just for your general information, but Franco and Vanessa play lovers in the film, and in reality they became lovers and married decades later. Maybe to younger audiences, they'll be more recognizable as the old couple from the film Letters to Juliet. But anyways, this will be a movie review with spoilers, so you have been warned. Why is this my third favorite movie in the world? Well, it all started a long time ago when I was 12 years old, and I had just seen the movie King Arthur that came out in 2004 with Clive Owen and Keira Knightley. And I don't know why, but I really wanted to have that movie. So I asked my mother to buy it for me, but she made a mistake and instead she came back with Camelot. And at first I was really sad because I had never heard about Camelot, and I saw that it was a musical and it was really old, and I was very skeptical about it. But I remember that I watched it that same night, and everything changed for me since then. I fell utterly in love with the movie. It made such an impression on me, not only because of the story and the character development and because it's so focused on romance, but because of the actors' performances. Vanessa Redgrave quickly became this important role model for me in a way, and I began watching a lot of movies which she had started in when she was young, for example Isadora, A Man for All Seasons, or The Charge of the Light Brigade. And that then led me to become interested in British theatre from long ago, and I discovered Sir Laurence Olivier and Sir John Gielgud, and I think that those were my beginnings into the path that I am now, which is to be an Anglophile. This is quite a nostalgic and romantic take on King Arthur's life. It begins with Arthur on the eve of this battle that he's going to have against Lancelot, his best friend, and the best knight the Round Table has ever known. Arthur is very saddened by this and because of the way his life turned out, and he wonders how did it become a tragedy and that dashed his dreams and ambitions. He feels lost because he cannot understand where he went wrong. Merlin the magician appears to Arthur and tells him that the key to understanding all of this is to go back in time and remember everything that happened since the day he first met Guinevere. So the main story is actually a flashback as Arthur recalls everything that happened to him since first meeting Guinevere. And I adore the fact that they show that Arthur and Guinevere were really in love with each other since the start. But then when everything was imperfect for the royal couple, Lancelot du Lac comes into the scene. He is this French nobleman who claims to be the best knight in the world due to his physical and spiritual purity, and he's fascinated by Arthur's idea of the Round Table and having knights fight for right, and Arthur quickly warms up to him because of this, and that's how their friendship begins. But as to Guinevere, she immediately dislikes Lancelot from the start. She thinks that he's stuck-up and wants to teach him a lesson in humility, but then her plan backfires and she ends up falling deeply in love with Lancelot at the same time that he falls for her. And Camelot is quite long. It's divided into two parts, and this was the first part. It's quite merry and gay, but then the second part is when the tragedy really strikes the characters. Some years have passed since Lancelot and Guinevere became lovers, and despite their best attempts, everyone at court knows that they're having an affair, even Arthur. But nobody really can say anything about it because if they do, Lancelot challenges them to a duel, and since he's the best knight in the world, he always wins, which means that all the knights that lose are banished from court, and that makes the round table an empty table because there's no more knights left after Lancelot beats them. And in order to avoid losing his remaining knights, Arthur comes up with the trial by jury method to replace trial by combat. And in this way, since no actual evidence can be produced of the affair between Lancelot and Guinevere, they cannot come to harm and no more knights can go away, and Arthur is as relatively happy as he can be. But really, Arthur is such a good man in this movie, and he really cares for Lancelot and Guinevere, and he wants to keep them safe, and he doesn't think it right to threaten the stability of Camelot by accusing them of treason against him. So partly because of that, he decides to turn a blind eye to the affair, but also because he really loves Guinevere, and it tears my heart the way he was so happy and in love with his wife, and Guinevere loved him back, but then Lancelot comes along and she falls for Lancelot, and she can't anymore express the love that she once had for Arthur. He is so upset by this, but he accepts it. But anyways, another problem arises for Arthur when his natural son Mordred shows up in court. Mordred is this very, very evil, twisted man who resents Arthur and wants things to fall apart for his father. So he decides that his best chance at doing this is to make public the relationship between Lancelot and the Queen. I think that one of the main reasons why I prefer the film over the book is because I watched the movie before I read the novel. I saw Camelot when I was 12, and it wasn't until I was 16 that I read The Once and Future King. And during those years in between, Camelot really became this important sort of cult movie for me. And I still think that The Once and Future King is some masterpiece of a book. But another thing that appeals to me more in the movie than in the book is that the film is way more romance-centered, whereas the novel is a sort of wider picture of the Arthurian legend. But I'm just gonna pinpoint some of the differences between book and movie before I go on to explain why I really prefer Camelot over the book. The first one would be that towards the end, in the movie, Arthur has to fight Lancelot, whereas in the novel, he has to fight his son, Mordred. And I think it's more poetic and tragic for Arthur to have to fight his natural son than his best friend. But then in the book, in the end, Arthur is just so old, and the only thing that he evokes in me is this longing to put a blanket on him and tuck him into bed, whereas in the movie he's in his 40s or 50s and he can still grasp the whole meaning of what he's doing and what's happening to him. Finally, the friendship between Arthur and Lancelot is played out very differently in both movie and book. In Camelot, he's rather than best friends, Arthur is more of kind of like Lancelot's champion, because when Lancelot first arrives at court, nobody likes him but Arthur. Whereas in The Once and Future King, they really are best friends. We get a lot of moments with them together, and Lancelot has admired Arthur since he was 15 years old. But anyways, the following are some reasons why I prefer the movie to the book. We get a lot of emphasis on this marriage. In the movie, Arthur even wanted to become a good king because of Guinevere, not only because he could make a more civilized place of the world if he was a monarch. And then in the book, we never get a single moment with Arthur and Guinevere alone. Lancelot is always with them, and that really harms their marriage and my take on it, because I have no idea how Arthur really feels for his wife. I love Merlin, and I think he's an amazing character, but the world already has a lot of books and movies and TV series that deal with Merlin and reduce Guinevere's part in the story. But here we get more of Guinevere than of the magician. When Arthur is coming up with the idea of the Round Table and how knights should fight for right, Guinevere is by his side and she sort of advises him and asks him questions and encourages him. And in any case, Guinevere was way more likable to me in the film than in the novel. And Vanessa Redgrave does a beautiful job in playing the queen. This is the end of this movie review. I hope that you enjoyed hearing me talking about Camelot enough to go and watch it. Please let me know if you do, or maybe you've already seen it, and I encourage you to talk with me about it. In any case, I am Caro, Mental Traveler, and I thank you very much for watching this video. In the description box, as always, you can find a link to the IMDb page of Camelot, as well as a link to its trailer. And I'll also be putting the link to my book review of The Once and Future King, the novel that Camelot is based on. I wish you all a grand day. Thank you very much. See you next time. Goodbye.